Okay, perfect. So what we're gonna work on today is we're gonna create a library, and we're just gonna keep it really simple. We're gonna make a library model, we're gonna make books, and we're just gonna make I guess members, right? And we'll just work with those three models, see their different relationships. First, we'll draw it inside of an SQL, and then after that, we'll start working, turning it into Django. So I want to tackle this SQL draw portion before we go on break this morning. So let's go ahead and start. Which model would we want to start with?
Are you talking about from like a SQL perspective?
Right.
Just like we can start with tables.
Hmm.
So I
The
think
the
a
the
book
library
Start with
model.
library.
I think a book table would be easy enough, right? Because it's just going to be plugged into the library, and then it's going to be checked out to a member or a library member.
Yeah,
And then it's going to have a title and like an ISBN, right?
Okay, yeah, that's perfect. All right, so we got our library, we got our member, we got our book. Okay, and then you said that book would have what? A title?
So yeah, it'd have a title, probably. I mean, every book has an ISBN, and probably a library ID. I mean, if we're keeping it simple, I mean.
Okay. And then this one should be what kind of data structure here? So what do we want title? Do we want title to be big integer, or what do we want there?
Would that be a one-to-many for a library ID?
Yeah, we could probably do something here where we say library. So we can specify which library it belongs to, and then that would then connect this way. But instead of a one-to-one, just like you said, we would want a many books belongs to one library. Okay, so far we have a title, we have a library ID, and then we have the library already connected.
Isn't the reason we have a library ID to connect it to the library?
That's what I thought too.
Yeah, it's a little bit confusing if it's like the library ID's like barcode specifically for it, or is it the connection to the library table?
I thought it was the connection to the library table, and then the ID was the book's ID itself, like that code.
Yeah, that's what I would, let's see. Maybe we could name this book ID instead. How does that work?
Oh, well,
What is that actually supposed to be? What is the book ID?
I was thinking we could just maybe create like a code for that one. Nothing really. We could delete this column, or we could delete the library ID and just have it be the actual connection to the library. Is that
Could
what
we
we
just
For
call it like
simplicity's
barcode?
sake, you could just cut it.
Or like that's like the ISBN.
Yeah, that would work too. That way it's just not confusing with that underscore ID. It makes me think that it's getting
Yeah.
connected to something else.
we can do ISBN, and then the fourth one we can make library ID. That's how it connects to the library.
Okay, and then this one will be library ID. Got it. Okay, and then this will probably be a char field. What else we got? This ISBN, is that typically just numbers, or do we want something like char?
Yeah, it stands for International Standard Book Number, so it's just a long string of numbers.
Okay, so we'll leave
Yeah,
that.
it's either an 11 or a 13-digit number.
Okay, perfect. And then we got our library ID, which just links strictly to that ID. Oh, and it needs to be unique. Thank you. Knowable. Unique. All right. Okay, so now we have our book kind of set up. Maybe we could go a little bit more in depth where we go into authors and all of that. But this is pretty simple. Actually, let's go ahead and go with authors. Why not? Maybe genre and authors, just so we can mess around with that as well.
Why not?
Genre is good. Okay, so now we got our member. What do we need to know about our members?
That'll be first and last names.
Okay. So let's say first name. Do we want that all together or separated?
Separated?
Separate.
Last name.
We could have a column where it's like a true or false if they have outstanding fines. like overdue fines. And then like their library card ID. If we're gonna make a table for library cards, are we gonna do that?
I thought that's what the ID was for, because it has automatically their ID card,
Okay.
like the library card.
Okay, that's fair. So we could always connect it that way. Okay. Let's delete this one then. And then let's say that the library, that it has a library that they belong to. So library. And then I think we preface that ID. Okay, and now this member would have a relationship to the ID. And then would this be a one-to-one relationship, or what kind of relationship would that be?
You're gonna have many members to one library,
Okay, nice. So now we have our books, we have our
but
members,
it could be a many to many too, couldn't it?
because many members.
If we wanted it to be,
many ID to many libraries.
yeah. If we wanted it to
If
be
we
like
wanted
that,
it, for the purpose of this exercise, let's keep it this way, where it would be just a many to one. And then the next thing we want to do is maybe we want to alter this library a little bit. Currently, right now, all it has is an ID. What do we want to add onto this library?
Inventory.
Okay, let's add that. But inventory would essentially just be all the books, right?
Oh yeah. Well, if we had more tables like for CDs or for movies or for other things, I guess then we would have like an inventory,
Right.
I guess.
You have a name.
Okay, let's change this for name then. Okay. Book order. I don't even know what that means, Dennis. Do we know what a book? Can anyone explain to me what a book order is?
That's a
Like that
list. That's
system?
to borrow as a book. A list.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah, we could probably create that manually for us on our own rather than trying to put it into the database. Let's see.
Would you want to have like a list of members in the library?
Yeah, and that's where we'll be connecting it through the one-to-many relationship. So we could get that list of members as well later on.
Would staff
Maybe
be a different
address?
table or the same table?
Sorry.
Or in the same library table?
Could you say that question again?
I said, would the staff be in the library table or would it be its own?
Yeah, the staff would technically be its own table, but we would have to add that. And it may create a little bit of extra work. I want to keep it simple so that we could make sure that we answer questions. So for now, let's keep the library of what we have for now. But then my next question would be, when these books get rented out by a member, we probably want to create a link between the book and members for them to be tracking who's being rented out to who. And I think at that point, that's where we would want a many-to-many relationship, right? Address, is that for library? Yes,
I
okay,
think so. I think, yeah.
okay, we could add that in there. Let's do address, let's do text. Oh, hello. Okay, so now how would we handle that? We have this members, and let's handle it at the members level. How could I create a many-to-many relationship between books and members?
You could create a table for rentals.
Yeah, I could create a table for rentals where I would say, and then I could bring this rentals in between. And then I could say, well, this should be tracking the book. Oh, that's a whole new table. That's not what I wanted. And then it could be tracking the member. But because we're doing it through Django, or would we just have another column added? Yeah, perfect. Good question, Grace. Yeah, since we're doing it through Django, we could connect this connecting table when we're doing it through pure SQL. But because we're doing it through Django, we could just go ahead and add here a members. And these are the members that we can belong to, or that can be renting us out. So we could call this a many to many, or a many to one. And actually, instead of it connecting to the ID, we're going to go ahead and create a new column here, and I'm going to name it books. And this books would also be a many to one. It creates this like square looking thing that annoyingly doesn't separate from each other. But essentially this specific connection is linking IDs to books, and members is linking members to the ID of members. Okay. So it looks like we have our schema so far. Does anyone have any questions about this schema, or any adjustments that anyone would like to make to it? Okay, it seems like everyone's feels pretty good about this. So let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and continue on with the exercise. I'm not. Thank you.
It's okay to just have one like environment though, right? Because that's what I have. I
Yes.
just use one. Okay.
Yes, that is okay. Okay, so I go ahead and start a virtual environment. And then I activate the virtual environment. All right, what's next?
Install Django.
Yeah, I get Django installed. Yeah, it's telling me to do this pip upgrade, so I'm gonna upgrade my pip real quick. Yeah, I know I'm gonna have to talk to my database, so I probably need a package to be able to do that. Can anybody tell me which one that is?
Postgres binary.
PG.
Yeah, PsychoPG binary. All right.
Oh
let's-
yeah, sorry. Knew it was close.
Can you make the terminal a little bit bigger, Francisco? You can see some more history. Oh no, not like bigger, but I mean like raise it up a little bit. So
Oh, got it.
what you did earlier.
Like that?
Okay, yeah. I was just trying to catch up with where you were at. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, so now I do pip install PsychoPG binary. Let's see how that goes. Okay, so now I have PsychoPG installed. Do I need anything else, or should I start making the project now?
Should we do our requirements, our pip freeze?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do some pip freeze and then requirements .txt. All right, so now I have my requirements here. Let me make sure that worked correctly. Okay, so I have Django and PsychoPG. All right, that's all I need. What's next?
We need to create our database as well in SQL.
Okay, what do we want to name our database?
Library underscore DB.
Okay, so library DB. All right, it's been created. And let me just make sure. Yep, there it is. We have our library DB created and it's empty. Okay, so what's next?
Create your project.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's go Django admin, start project, library with a period at the end so that everything can populate. Okay, so now I have I have one file called manage.py and I have this library. Okay. Do I want to change anything in this library before I continue moving forward? Or do we want to move, or actually?
First you got to create your app, I guess, to give it its name, but then you got to go back into the settings and add your database and
your
app into the settings.
Okay, so which app do we want to do first? Do we want to do library, book, or member?
Let's do the one that has the most links. That's usually the easiest one, right? So book or member.
All right, perfect. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's do member app. And actually, let's just get all of them in there. Might as well. Okay, so now we can see we have our library, we have our book app, our library app, and our member app. Okay, good. So what's next? I think someone mentioned something about the settings. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up the settings file. What are I fixing here?
You want to install your after you just create it, and then you want to ensure you link your database.
Nice. All right, so let's go ahead and install the member app. Let's install the book app. And let's install the library app.
So we just use a single quote. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Django, this is just string, so it doesn't really matter if we use single or double quotes.
Okay.
Good catch though. All right, and now let's move on down to the database. All right, Roger, you mentioned something about me connecting my database, but can anyone walk me through how to do that?
You need to change the engine first from SQLite 3 to I think it's PostgreSQL.
PostgreSQL. Got it.
And then you should just link the database name and name to whatever we name the database. So I think like library_DB.
Perfect.
Excuse me, Francisco, did we install the REST framework for this project?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
Right.
Scroll up. I think you misspelled member.
Yeah, let's check it out. Member. All right. Member. There you go.
You need the spell check add-on.
I really do. Yeah, I really do.
Can you scroll up in your terminal for a moment?
Oh, in my terminal? Yeah.
Yeah. Can you scroll up a little bit more?
What did you call the project exactly?
Just library.
Okay.
So after you installed Django, the next thing you did, upgrade the pip and then the Psycho PG. Okay. Thanks.
Of course.
Why's your pip always like out of date?
That's a really good question. I wish when you made a virtual environment, your pip would just be the latest version, but for whatever reason, it's not. And then they always ask you to update it. I think it's because they make updates to they make updates to pip constantly, but making updates to the virtual environment takes a while. And that's more than likely what it is, why you always have a old version of pip. I'm sure once they update the virtual environments, you'll have the newest version of pip for maybe like a month or two. And then when they update pip, you'll get that command again. All right.
It feels like we're just dogpiling on you. Like, oh, this is misspelled. Oh, change your engine. Oh, why is pip out of date? Just like, feels bad.
Oh, all right. So now we got our database. Everything's connected properly as far as I know. And so are my apps. But maybe I want to test if that connection is built in properly. So what can I do to get everything that's already inside of my Django project? Nothing in my apps just yet. But how can I get my projects into my database alone?
Make migrations.
Yeah, let's try it. Let's try Python, manage PY, make migrations. Okay, so it told me that there was no changes detected, and I'm sure that that's because I have no models. But what's the other step that I can do? What comes after make migrations?
Migrate?
Migrate.
Yeah, so let's migrate. Yeah, so now we see all these changes happening. Let me open up another terminal here. And let me go into the library DB. Okay, now if I run /d, we're able to see that everything from Django came in correctly. And I have my tables to go ahead and continue to move forward. Okay, so now I have my database connected, my project's built out, I have all of my apps. Okay, so let's take a look here. We said that we wanted to start with the member app. So where in the member app do I want to start?
Models.py.
Okay, I go to models. What do I need here?
The class?
Okay.
How many tables did you have in your database real quick? Was it 19?
I don't know if I could count them.
It
Yes,
should say at the bottom. Okay, yeah, thank you. Sorry.
of course, no problem. Okay, so I'm starting out this class. What do we want to name it? Did I seriously misspell member app?
Oh no, you fixed it. That was a while ago.
Okay.
Members.
Yeah, let's name a member. What's going inside of these parentheses?
Models.model.
Okay, perfect. So what's the first field name we want to add in there?
First name.
What kind of field do we want? We kind of left them all as big.
Char.
Okay, so let's go with char field. Do we want to add a max length into it?
No. Don't have to, right? We figured out we don't have to.
I don't know. Someone on the chat yesterday was saying that they didn't have to. Okay, well, Noah says he just skips it every time, so let's try it out and see if he's right.
Big trust.
Yeah, okay, and then the next one's gonna be last name. What do we want this one to be?
Another char field.
Nice. Okay. What's next?
Age, and that'll be integer.
Is it any integer field or is there a specific integer field that we want?
Probably positive.
Positive.
All right, let's do positive. Do we want to give this a default?
I don't know when people can get their first library card. Is it like 10?
I think younger.
Okay, let's do default 12 then. All right, so now we have age, and then we have overdue funds, which should be a Boolean. So how do I put that in there?
Models.boolean field.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jesse. I'm assuming everyone's likely having trouble keeping up if you're having trouble keeping up. So I'm gonna go ahead and slow down a little bit. Okay. How's everyone doing so far? Is everyone kind of on par with me as well, or should we take a little pauser and wait for everyone to catch
I
up?
am slightly behind you right now.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to catch up right
Ran
now.
into a few errors creating, so I'm slowly catching up.
Yeah, let's take
Just
a
made
little
my
pause.
apps.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm at creating apps. I've got no module named member app after I run the Python create app member underscore app. So
Are
what am I
you-
doing wrong? Are my apps not in the correct folder?
I think you want Python manage py start app, and then the name of your app.
All right, bear with me. Python manage.py start app member app under member underscore app. And then it gives me no module named member underscore app. Am I in the wrong place?
Yeah, are you that's weird. Are you
Check
in-
where your folders are at, and then also check where you're at in your directory.
Standby. One instruction at a time, please.
Yeah, if you run ls, does it show you the manage py script?
Yes, and it's red and irritated.
Red and irritated. Okay, let
I
me
don't
go
know.
ahead-
Yeah, it shows up red.
Let me go ahead and stop the share, and then maybe you could share your screen real quick.
Sure.
Let me pause the recording so no one's facing. Okay. All right, so the last thing that we were able to build out was our age field. We turned it into a positive integer and gave it a default number of 12. The next thing we need is overdue funds. So how can I make that?
Overdue funds equals models dot boolean field. Do we want default to false?
Yeah, let's do that. Boolean field, default. Let's make that false. Okay, nice. And then we got these connections, but we haven't built out the other models yet. So maybe we'll come back and make these connections. Okay. So currently right now we have our member. What do we want to go from here?
We want to make a foreign key for library ID.
Yeah, we do. But currently right now our library doesn't exist. So let's make our library. Let's go over to the library app. Let's open up the models. Okay, so now I'm in the models of the library app. What do I need to make here?
It's your library class.
Yeah, let's just make a library class. So I say class, library, and what goes inside of the parentheses again?
Model.models.
So models.model. Okay, so now currently right now all we have is a name and an address. How do I add that in there?
Name equals models dot varchar.
Right. So
And
that
for that one, address equals models dot char field.
Yeah, let's do it. Do we want char field or do we want text? Honestly, I don't know
Oh.
if there's going to be an address, it's going to be more than 255 characters. But the possibility is there, so I'm just going to go ahead and make this into a text field just in case. Okay. So now we made our ID for library. Okay, nice. I'm gonna take a pause here real quick for a second and look at the chat just to make sure that everyone is good. If you're not caught up to this point, please take this time to get caught up. Yeah, I think in an ideal world, we would want to make a specific data table for addresses. And then that address would be handled by that table in itself, right? Otherwise, we would have to make some really complicated kind of regex to handle that addresses are being put in the correct format. But to keep this nice and simple, we're going to go ahead and kind of go over that step and avoid it so that we don't try to create too many data tables. That's a very good observation though, Robert. Okay, and then Brenda, yes, do we need an address? Like as an address class, is that what you're referencing to?
No, I was just saying, like, are you like, for the purpose of like reviewing, do you like need it? What is it going to be doing exactly?
Yeah, we really don't need this field at all. If we didn't want to, we could remove it since we're not keeping track of it. It's more to so that we have it. Okay. Show them the struggle of the real world. All right, Roger's not a fan of kids, apparently. All right, let's go ahead and keep pushing forward here. Seems like everyone has stopped typing, although I can't seem to see everyone, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and keep moving forward. So we have our library, we have our member, and finally we can go to our book. So let's open up our directory. Let's go to the book app and let's open up the models file. So in the models file, how do I make this book table?
Class book. Models, top model.
Nice.
Francisco, just real quick. Well, our models, our classes of our models, then we want them to be plural, kind of like how you were saying, like Pokemon is just Pokemon plural, just not Pokemans or whatever. So you just name it Pokemon.
Yeah, that's a good point. So book, we don't want them to be pluralized as in many of them, because once we look into our admin site, our admin site adds an extra S at the end. But this is an instance of a book, not multiple books at once are being created. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Could I get you to go back to your the previous model real quick? The library model? Or no, that one, yes. Okay, thank you.
Of course. Okay, so we got our book, but we're still missing all those fields. So walk me through adding those fields real quick.
Start with title.
All right, so title.
And then models dot, and probably be a char field. And then ISBN. And then models. And then it's only integers. I don't know if we want to just make it an integer or if we want to, because I think it's pretty large.
It is
Might be
very
easier-
large, yeah.
It might be
11.
easier to just do a char field.
It's 11 to 13 characters usually, or 11 to 13 numbers, I mean.
And then inside of it, we need to make it unique, right?
Yeah, each one's going to be unique.
Unique, true, nice.
And then library ID.
Yeah, let's avoid the connection and jump into genre real quick, and then we'll go into connections at the bottom. I am getting
Okay.
yellow squiggles under this from Django.db. What am I missing? That's your VS code just freaking out. Everything will work properly, Katie. Okay, so we have genre, and what did we say we wanted genre to be?
I think it's char field.
Right. Okay, and now we can start making connections. So we have our library ID. And what kind of connection are we looking for here? We specified that it's a many to one from what I can see here. So what do I want to put there?
Many to one.
The foreign key.
Foreign key.
Or is it foreign key?
Let's go with foreign key. Okay, and then I'm referencing to the library. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and write in library. Well, it gives me these yellow squiggles, and it's saying that library doesn't exist. Why is that?
We need to import it.
Yeah, let's check it out. Let's go here and say from my library app dot models import library. Okay, so now it's able to recognize library, and I have my foreign key. But let's say this library gets discontinued or something like that. Let's say it goes away, catches on fire, gone forever. What do I want to happen to these books? Do these books still exist? If the
Delete.
library's gone? Yeah, so I want to do something like on delete models dot cascade. And just to make sure that everyone's tracking, all this is doing is if the library disappears, all books who are connected to this specific library will disappear as well.
Hey, Francisco, real quick on line 9, can you just explain the difference between using foreign key versus putting the many to many fields in there?
Yeah, so the main difference between foreign key and many to many is that foreign key is a many to one connection. I wish it was just named many to one, but for whatever reason, Django has it saved as foreign key, meaning that many books can belong to one specific ID. If I had a many to many connection, I would be saying that many books can belong to many libraries. Does that address your question, Jake?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Of course.
There is a many to one rel in their function.
Yes, I know, and the many to one relationship works differently than the foreign key. I'm trying to avoid getting too much in depth in between those two to avoid losing the class. But we could definitely talk about it later on if you guys would like to.
Okay.
Hey, just to
You-
recap real fast, that on delete, that's saying if we delete a book or we delete a library.
Yeah, so that on delete is tracking the library. So if the library gets deleted, all books that share the same ID with this connection to the library will be deleted as well.
That thing.
Hey Francisco, I asked this earlier. I don't know if it got answered when I stepped away from my computer, but why are we doing two many to one instead of just many to many?
Too many to one. Are you asking about this?
The many to one from the book to the member, and then also from the member to the book, instead of just like a many to many between the two.
Yeah, so these are many to many, but Postgres doesn't allow you to do that, right? That many to many relationship only exists within Django. So this is to help us identify that books connects to the individual book ID and members connects to the member ID. Once we make this in Django, it will be connected as a many to many. Does that address your question?
It does, thank you.
Of course. Okay, so now we have this foreign key. It's been connected, and just like we brought up, we have members, but let's handle this many-to-many relationship at the members field. So let's move over there now. Book is now completed. I can go ahead and get rid of my book model. My library doesn't seem to have anything else, so I can go ahead and get rid of my library. And now I can move into my member. Well, this member. Oh, I have another message. Can you explain the foreign key on the difference of putting it in one table over the other? Yeah, I definitely can. And so let's say that we were to create this foreign key relationship. I'm so sorry, this might be a little bit redundant. I hope it isn't. But if I were to create this foreign key relationship from the library, right? And say, hey, on delete models.cascade. Well, in that case, I would be saying that many libraries would be connected to one book. And if that one book were to disappear, then all those libraries that are connected to that one book would then disappear as well. So that's why it needs to be at the child level rather than the person that you're connecting to. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes, it does.
Okay, so now let's move on to member. It looks like the next thing we need is library ID. So pretty much what we did before. So library ID is equal to models dot foreign key. It's going to be tracking library. It's going to say on delete models dot cascade. Okay, nice to get these yellow squigglies again. Why is it that I'm getting those yellow squigglies?
Because you haven't connected it up top.
Okay, and what does that import statement look like?
From library,
Okay, so from library or library app?
library, yeah,
Okay,
dot models. Import library.
nice. Okay, so now we have our connection there. And now the next thing that we need to connect is our books. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. And we discussed this quite a bit of times. What kind of connection would this be?
Many to many.
There's many to many.
Yeah, so let's connect a many to many. So we want a many to many field. Okay. And now in this many to many field, what am I connecting it to?
You want to connect it to books, and then we want to create a related table.
Yeah, and then related name. And what's that related name?
Members.
Yeah, perfect. It'll be members. Okay, and again, I have these yellow squigglies. We've already identified that it's from the import statement. So can anybody walk me through writing this import statement really quickly?
Actually, can we the members, can you go over that, the related name one more time?
Yeah, definitely. So I have this many to many field, but currently right now, the only person if I were to take away this related field, this related name field, the only people who would be, or the only model that would have access to this many-to-many relationship would be the member. All right, so all of my logic would have to happen from the member side. And that my book in itself wouldn't have access to all the members that have this many relationship with it. So I can't create a members on my book class and import member, because then it would freak out. It'll tell me, hey, this is a circular import. I can't work this way. So in order to avoid that circular import, Django knows that we do want to have a reference from both sides of the tables or from both models. So it gives us a related name of member. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a field inside of my book class with the name of members. Ooh, well, members, not member. Did that answer your question?
It did. Thank you.
Of course.
Members. Yeah, it's also so it's misspelled on line 12, but then it's also misspelled in the very last column on your book table.
On line 12?
Yeah, you fixed it on line 12. Now it's on the last column of your book table on JSQL.
Oh boy. Okay. Last column of my book table. Let me see where my book app is.
Over in your browser, yeah.
Oh, in my browser. Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. Members.
Can you put it plural in books when you assign the many to many fields, even though the class is singular? Will it still work?
Right, because so this is the representation of what this connection is going to be, and since I know it's going to be multiples, that's why I make it plural. Okay, and I have these books. Can anybody walk me through this import statement for books real quick?
From book app, or yeah, from book app dot models import books.
So let's see that.
You're gonna have to take that S off of books, right?
This one, yes, correct, because we made it only one. So let me import.
That's what I was asking.
Oh, I apologize. I thought you were referencing to the variable name.
No, you're good.
Okay, so from bookapp.models import book. Okay, and then Robert, you have a question?
Yeah, isn't there a way you can import it directly in the foreign key or many to many, doing like in quotes bookapp.book?
Yes, and I would be writing it out in that case. This is just making it more explicitly, and it's allowing Django to, it's basically lightening the load on Django. It's a performance.
Okay.
It's really not that big a deal. It won't be enough to like make a huge difference. But this is typical standard.
Okay, I was just thinking like of using that to avoid like circular imports.
Oh, I see.
And then can we take a look at the book model real fast?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I have to do some research on that one, Robert, and figure out if that will work.
And because we set up the other one, we don't need a members here. This is the part that just exists in Django that we don't have a members field.
Right. So it comes from member model through many to many relationship.
Francisco, that's a rule, right? Where you whenever there's tables related, only one table actually captures the relation, right? Whether it's many to many or foreign key, only one table has that reference.
That's correct. Yes, only one table will actually capture that information. Django just handles the responsiveness of that connection. Okay, and that's why I use related name. Could you specify that question a little bit, Noah?
Yeah, what I meant is members comes from member model through many to many relationship, and it uses the related name members, and that's how we can access it.
That's correct. Yes,
Okay,
so we actually specify that as well. Through related name.
I think this part got really confusing to me when you couldn't access it from the views thing. Like once we put it into JSON, that row isn't there. unless we bring it in from a Django object, right?
Yeah, so that's correct. And just like I don't know if it was Jesse or Ivan who just mentioned it, but only one table is actually catching those relationships. The other table couldn't care less. Django is handling the responsiveness of that. And that's why it doesn't show up when you go ahead and try to turn it into JSON and all that good stuff.
Yeah, that part got confusing for me yesterday.
Yeah, definitely.
And then in the views, I think you might have said this already. In the views, you can only take it from that table where it's referenced, correct? You can't pull it in from the other table.
We'll go into that shortly once we go into
Okay.
our model view controllers. What just got confusing?
Oh, nothing. We just
Oh,
mess
okay.
around.
Got it. Also, I like the unique signifier as a snowflake. Yeah, that's weird. Because every snowflake is unique. Yeah, that's fair. All right. So now we have our schema built out, and now we can go ahead and, well, we know we can make migrations and migrate, but before we do any of that, there's probably something that we want to do to our models to ensure that everything, all the data that's being entered into our models are going in correctly. Can anyone think of what that is?
Admin?
Say again?
To admin right now?
Yeah, we could add them to admin, but what I'm looking for right now are validators, right? We want to add some sort of validation fields to all of these models. So let's go ahead and think about that. What kind of validator do we want for first name, last name? Do we even want a validator overall? If we don't want a validator, that's fine. We can look for a validator for age. For example, right now we have a positive integer field, but that means a person could live up to 1,000 and still be able to rent out books, right? So what do we want here as far as validation goes?
Like a min value and a max value?
We need to import validators though, right?
Yeah, let's start off there. Let's go ahead and import validators. And I think that comes from Django core.validators. There you go. Oh, don't want it that way. So from Django core, import validators. And we will make custom validators today. We'll just apply the built-in validators for what we have. Okay, so
Can we make at least one just to touch up on it? I feel like we should at least do one.
I was gonna
Just
say,
for
could
the sake of
we
having a
do like
demonstration.
the name with the regex or something like that?
yeah, we could definitely try doing something like that. So let's I just want to make sure that we make it through the lesson. Let me check the calendar because I know we have our stand down. I mean, not our stand down, but we have our uniform weekly retro. Okay, so let's get through just regular regular validators first. And if we're able to get through regular validators and we still have some time towards the end, we'll come back and make some custom validators as well.
Okay.
All right. Leads the top of resources doc. What is it that you're looking for? Oh, the calendar. It should be on your Google Calendar. Okay, let's go ahead and continue here. So far we've made all of this. We've just said that we wanted to add some validators. So I'm just make this as V so that I can reference it through the V. And now we can go ahead and enter some validators in. So we just said that age, there was something that we wanted to add. So what do we want here?
Validators equal brackets.
Mm-hmm.
And then the V, and then
Min value validator.
Okay, what do we want there?
I put age. I don't know what age you can get a library card at though.
2.
Like really young, I think like 6 or 8 or something.
They say 6 and then give them $20 debt.
Let's go with 6. All right, so 6, and then do we want a max validator here?
Overdue fines with a compounding interest.
Yeah.
Christ.
100 max value.
Okay, let's do some max value validator and make this go up to 100.
We gotta do 120. There's some people over 100.
There you go. Gotta.
You're right. We can't be ageist. We gotta include.
Okay, so now we got
They're
our
too senile to remember to return their books.
That's so dark.
All right. And now we don't need any validation for library ID or anything like that. But maybe we want to put a length limitation here for first name and last name. Or maybe we don't. What do you guys think? Should we put a length limitation here?
A minimum length, maybe.
Okay, let's do that. Let's say, well, first I'm going to specify the max length and now to be 255 because I'm messing around with the fields. And then I'm going to say validators, and you said a min. Okay, so min length validator, what do you want that to be? At least 2, right?
No, I know a guy who had just B as his first name, the letter B.
That's cool. All right, so let's go with 1 then.
Middle name was J.
Nice. So let's go with
No.
Okay.
Francisco, is there a validator that makes it have to be a string, or can you only do that with the customized validator?
Yeah, so you could make something. Yeah, I think that's what it is. So you can make something like validators.char field and then specify it. But that's essentially just creating a models char field in there.
So I was gonna ask, are some of these redundant? And if so, are we going through these for the sake of the exercise? So line 9, models.char field, right? That's only going to accept a character field of link 255. So then if we go in there and we say validators equals a character field only, isn't that redundant?
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna say that this is a character field only. The reason why we went into last name was to give it a min length validator. And currently right now, char field doesn't handle minimum length. Right now I can just put in technically nothing into this char field and it would still pass and go straight into my database. And that's not what I want. So that's why
Would that be handled by a null equals false then?
I could add null equals false, yes. And then that would make sense. That would force the user to at least put 1 character.
That's the default though, right?
I'm not sure. We'll have to try it out. Do we want to try it out real quick, or do we want to just keep pushing forward?
I like doing it for the sake of doing it, just to push the idea, but I understand what Michael was saying though.
Yeah, no, some of these can be redundant, right? So it's important to realize that some fields come with their own validations. So for example, if we were messing around with a Boolean field, right? A Boolean field, we're not going to add any validators in there because the only validator there is a Boolean validator. And if I try to put a Boolean validator in there, why am I doing that if I already have a Boolean field that only accepts true or false? So yeah, some of this can be redundant, but sometimes it does bring some value to set such things like max length, right? If I had a text field that I needed something to be more than 255 characters, but I didn't want it to be more than 500 characters, then that's where I would put like v dot max length, so that I can ensure that the user doesn't input anything that's greater than 500 characters. But that's a very good observation, Michael. All right. Let's leave this right now the way we have it. At the library level, or sorry, at the book level, currently right now we have a title. We have ISBN, genre, and our library. I don't really think there's any validators that we need to add here, except for this one, for ISBN. In ISBN, I think, Michael, you mentioned that they have to be between a certain number of characters. Can you tell me what that was again?
I can't quite remember. I know that it's not between actually. I think it's either 10 numbers or it's 13 numbers. But you can reference a book by just most books are printed with both. So if you want to go with a more unique, I guess it'd be 13 digits, but it's kind of out of the scope of, I think, what we're trying to do here. I apologize for kind of bringing that into the conversation.
Yeah, no problem at all. Let's go ahead and try to throw that in there just to have something as far as validators goes. So let's say, so from Django, Oh, that's not Django. .core. And then we're going to go ahead and import validators as V. Okay, so currently right now we have a max length of 13, unique, and now let's give it a validators, where the V min length validator will also be 13. So this way, the only thing that can get inputted is a total of 13 characters.
What if we wanted to make ISBN the primary key instead of ID?
Yeah, if you wanted to make ISBN the primary key instead of the ID, there's such a thing as primary key field. So we would just change this from char field to primary key field. But I'm not sure how that would look like or react in the database, since I haven't done it before. And we could definitely do some exploring with that right after the lesson. Let's see, primary key field in Django. Let's see. Oh, there you go. So you just have to say primary key is true. So let's see what that does. Okay, so that would work, but that's going to make it a little bit difficult for us to put things into the database. We could do it this way if we wanted to, and this is how it would work. But I think for the purpose of the exercise, we're going to avoid utilizing this field.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. All right, is everyone caught up to this point? Okay, I see some head nods. I see a thumbs up. Okay.
What do we say the min length validator was?
Min length validator is up to 13. Okay, so now that all of this has been built out, before we go on to what's going on here? Sorry, I'm looking at the chat real quick. Why is the ISBN a char? Isn't it just numbers? If the number starts with 0, we need it to be able to get captured, and that's why we made it into a character field instead of number field. Okay, perfect. And actually, this would be a good time for a break. It's already set. It's already 9:56. Let's take a 10-minute break and come back at it's 9:56 for you, all of you. So let's come back at 10:05.
Hey, Francisco, do you mind if I see your library app file again?
Okay, so now we've made all of these changes. We have all of these models set up. We're ready to go. But we probably want access to them in the admin site after we make migrations and migrate. So let's see, how could I put all those models inside of the admin site? Can anyone walk me through registering them?
You want to go to your admin.py?
Okay. So let's go.
For your projects, yep. And then you want to go ahead and import your models. So import book, member, and then library.
I don't think I have library in here. Maybe. Oh, I do have them. All right, perfect. Now,
and then afterwards, you're going to do admin.site.register, I believe. And then in there, in a list format, you want to add all your imports.
Okay, nice. All right, so now they're registered. We're ready to go. Let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like on the admin side.
Hey, Francisco, can you show that screen one more time? I don't think I've ever done that. Or if I did it, I like blanked that part out.
Yeah, I missed that too. That's under the member app folder.
Correct. So member
I believe it
admin.py.
It doesn't matter which folder you do it in, correct? Or am I wrong?
No, that's correct. It doesn't matter which one you do it in. You just have to have access to all of those classes. And you could have multiple admin.site.register. Typically what I do is I go into each admin and then I put in the respective model. But in this case, for simplicity's sake, since we already had all 3 models inside of our member folder, we were inside of our models inside of our member app dot models, we just imported all three of them so that we could register them as well.
And then after this, you still have to do the super user.
Yeah. Before I get into my super user, I'm gonna go ahead and make migrations. Then I'm going to migrate. Okay, and we can see that those three migrations happen. So just to confirm, I'm gonna go.
Your terminal is pretty hard to read at like.
Oh, I'm sorry. Should I close this? Is that better?
Yeah. Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Okay. So now I'm gonna go over here and I'm going to make sure that I have all of those connections now. If I scroll down to the bottom, we can see that now instead of 19 rows, I have 27 rows. I have my book app. I have my member app, and I also have my library. Yeah, we could register in each admin, but just one will suffice. You could just do it in one.
You didn't create the super user right there, did you?
I haven't created a super user yet. No.
Okay, you just made the migrations. I just want to make sure that I didn't miss
Yes,
them.
that's correct.
Francisco, you said one app, but it's meaning you import from one app, right? But you still register all three.
Yes, I registered all three. All three models are registered, not the apps themselves, but the models is what needs to be.
Oh,
registered.
got it.
Yes, since he imported book and library into the member model file, he's able to use all three.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
So now I'm gonna go ahead and make that super user. So I'm gonna say Python. Oh, eventually I'll be able to type here. Wondered. Okay, so I'm gonna say manage PY. You shouldn't have gotten that unless you made migrations before. But now that you do have it, it is impossible to add a non-nullable field, library ID to member without specifying a default. Okay, you're just gonna have to, this is for Andrew specifically, you're gonna have to make yours null equals true. And that's because you made migrations and I'm assuming you also created an instance prior to. And that's why you're getting that behavior. Everyone else should have gotten the same thing that I got. Mine says there are no changes directed.
I might have missed something, but when I type in my library, my admin site, it is not registering like the other two and showing up as a different color. Did I miss a link somewhere that I was supposed to do?
Are you talking about this right here?
Yes, both my libraries are different colors than the like the member in the book.
I had that too, Ryan. I had to do it in the admin in the member app for it to recognize them.
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now. For some reason, I must have missed some place where I have to connect them somewhere.
Yeah, mine's showing red for dot models import, and then member book library is yellow.
So inside of the models of the member app, you should have both the book and the library. So that's just in the models of the member app. Then that gives you access to both of those in the admin side. So you could say from dot models, import member, book, and library. Excuse me.
I'm sorry. I don't want to.
That's what mine was.
Okay, perfect.
I was just gonna ask real quick. I don't want to like harp on this too much, but what exactly is registering doing here? This is the first time I'm seeing it. I must have missed it.
Yeah, so the register is actually putting it on our admin site so that we can go on the admin site and manipulate our models through there instead of utilizing the Python shell.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Of course.
I think when I created the apps, my admin.site.register populated automatically. For every app, I have an admin py file that it registers each of those models separately. So
yeah, so you could do it separately. You could go into each individual app, go to the admin site, and import that specific one model and register it that way. The only reason why I'm able to access all three from this one is because I already had book and library imported when I made the foreign key and the many-to-many relationship. So
I
that's
guess, I guess what I'm saying, I'm sorry, I guess what I'm saying is that I didn't have to go into the admin PY, it did it by itself.
Oh, you did it automatically?
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm confused is I never had to do that before, and then I go in now and I see that every one of those admin PY files has my model registered within it, but only one.
Huh. Yeah, that's interesting. I have no idea how that works. Typically that behavior is. I've never heard of a Django doing that behavior where it will do it automatically for you. Were there any terminal commands before make migrations and migrate? No, there were not. So to simplify, he is importing library and book model. Thank you, Roger, for simplifying. The important statement worked because of the imports in your models. Yep, that's correct. Okay.
What was the solution for the it's impossible to add a non-nullable field to library ID without specifying a default, because I did migrations earlier. I think that was the cause for that.
Yeah, you'll just have to do null equals true.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. All right.
Yeah, that ended up working for me.
Say again.
That worked for me.
Okay, perfect. All right. So now that we have all of this information and everything's been registered on the admin site, let's go ahead and create a super user. So I'm going to run Python manage py create super user. And there I'm going to give it a username. I'm going to give it an email address. And I'm going to give it a password. Okay, it's going to tell me it's too short. So I'm going to say, yes, I want you to bypass. Okay, perfect. I'm not sure why mine isn't working, but I have a library API project folder with another library API project folder inside of it. You didn't put a dot at the end of the Python, at the end of Django admin start project. You didn't put a period at the very end of it, and I think that's where that behavior is coming from. We might have to look at yours more in depth, but is yours not working, Jesse, like at all?
It just says there's no migrations, but I swear I put the period there. But I was also like, that's when I was like really behind and trying to catch up. So maybe I like ran it. Yeah, I did Django /admin start project library period.
Yeah, let's take a look at yours real quick. Let me go ahead and pause the recording, and then I'll give you sharing screen. Okay, so I created my super user, and I went ahead and registered all of my models onto the admin site. So now let's see what my admin site looks like. So I'm going to say manage py run server. It's going to load my server here. I'm going to click on that link. Again, unfortunately, it opened up on the wrong window. So I'm going to copy that here. Paste it. And go there. And I see my Django rocket. All right. So next to that rocket, I want to go into the admin site. And I want to be able to actually enter. Okay. Now that I entered, we can see that I have my users and groups. But more importantly, for my individual apps, I have my books, libraries, and members. So let's go ahead and start creating a couple of instances. Let's go into libraries and let's create a couple of them. Okay, can anyone tell me of a specific name or anything that they would like this one to have, as well as an address?
For the Platoon library.
Say again?
For the Platoon library. Yeah, what?
Okay.
Code Platoon.
Oh, code Platoon library. Got it. Okay, and then what address do we want there?
Chicago?
Yeah, let's just stick with something simple. Let's just make cities here. That way we don't try to pull off addresses off the internet and all that good stuff. Okay, and let's just create another one just in case. Let's have two of them. Okay, so this one we have code Platoon. Let's name this one Platoon code. Or actually that might be a little confusing. Let's just go with Roosevelt. I'm sure there's a Roosevelt library out there somewhere. And then let's make this one live in, I'm not sure. What do we put in here? Go San Diego.
LA.
Yeah. LA. All right, so now we got our two, and we see how these are coming up as objects. I know there's a way to fix it. Does anyone remember how to fix that so that we could just see-
Dunder method.
Yeah, perfect. So let's go in there. Let's make our Dunder methods real quick. Let's go over to the library app, go to the model, and create a Dunder method. Want to take in self, and let's just return self.name. Okay, so now that I did that, when I refresh it, I see Roosevelt Library and Code Platoon Library. Okay, great. So now let's see what else we got here. Let's fix that Dunder method here. And let's place that under the book as well. So let's go to book, models. Let's add a Dunder method, but instead of returning .name, what would we want to return here?
Title.
Yeah, let's return .title. And the last part, which is the member. If I go to the models. Here again, I don't have a name field, so what would I like to return?
Probably an F string with the first and last name.
Yeah, let's do that. All right. Okay. So that takes care of our models. I can refresh this. Nothing's really going to change, but I can close this up. And now I can go over to my members and let's create some members. Okay, so first name, I'll go with, I'm just going to name it after you guys. I hope you guys don't mind. So Ivan, and then I'm not going to release anyone's last name. I don't know. I don't want to.
18.
Okay.
It's 18.
Maybe using you guys is a good idea. I'll just go with something else. And then it's asking, well, hey, you're creating this member, but who does this member belong to? Well, I want to make this member belong to Code Platoon. And currently I don't have any books, so I don't have to worry about any of that. And let's go ahead and create another one. So please correct the error below. This field is required. Wow.
We don't have it as a null field.
That is a good point. Yes, thank you. So let's go ahead and fix that real quick. Okay, now that I did that, I'm actually going to have to make migrations. So I'll go ahead, make migrations, migrate, and then finally I'll run my server. Well, it says it has no effect on a many-to-many field, so I don't think that's what the problem is. Okay, so I'm gonna add a book here. So let's say title, I'm not sure here. Let's say
Robin Hood.
Okay, so for ISBN, not sure what we have here. Let's do. I think it should cut me off. Okay, good. It's cutting me off. Genre, and let's say technical. And library ID. Let's make that belong to Code Platoon.
Were we able to still, after we made that null, were we able to create a member with there being no books?
No, it wouldn't let you because the nullable field has no effect on the library, on the many-to-many relationship. So you have to create a book.
Okay.
So now I'm able to save it. Now we see Ivan pop up. Let's make a new one. Let's see, who would we want here?
Roger.
Roger, and 12 might be a little too old. No, I'm just kidding. Let's go with 18 there as well. No overdue funds, and let's go with Code Platoon as well. Let's make this one JavaScript. ISBN, I don't know. Oh, don't want any dashes. Okay, and then the genre, we'll make this one technical as well. We'll have this one come out from code platoon. Okay, so now we have those two members. Let's add another one here. What other member do we want to create? Let's create, I guess, Francisco. Why not? 12 sounds good. Let's give him some overdue funds, making it true. And let's go to Roosevelt in this case. And let's go ahead and make a book. So this book could be scary stories.
To tell in the dark.
Say again?
Scary stories to tell in the dark.
Yeah. To tell, and I don't even know if I'm spelling this correctly. All right, so now genre, let's just make it, I don't know, horror. And then library ID, it's gonna be Roosevelt. Okay, so now I can save and add another. Okay, so let's make this our last one. Let's go with Adam. Let's give him an age of 20. Let's make the library ID go to Roosevelt. And let's have one last book. And this one say jokes. The genre should be comedy. And let's make the library ID go to Roosevelt. Okay, save. Okay, so now we have all of our clients, and notice that I was creating books at the same time. So now I have 4 books and 4 clients, with each one of them holding at least one book.
Hey, Francisco.
Yeah.
Sorry, can we just like pause for a second? For myself, I just have a question. Like after the migrations, what was the next thing you had done?
After the migrations. So after I migrated, I went ahead and created a super user. Not sure if you'll be able to see here. You likely won't be able to see it, but I ran Python manage py, make migrations, and then afterwards to migrate, I did Python manage py migrate, and then to create my user, it's Python manage py create super user all together, and then it's going to prompt you with a couple of things.
Okay, thanks.
Of course.
And can I see the dunner methods?
Yes.
Why are all those books in there? Is that just because we have the one can have many?
What do you mean, why are all these books in here?
No, so when we're creating a user or a member, the entire list of books there, is it only the highlighted ones that are getting added to that user?
Yes, it's only the highlighted one that gets added to the user.
Okay, so when you go and click on the user, it's okay, yeah. Just making sure.
Of course.
And then the one in the book set.
Say again? Oh, the one in the books? Yes, of course. I think this, oh, here you are. Yeah, I'll give everyone a couple of seconds to kind of catch up on their data. I can see a couple of people looking at their keyword, so I'll wait a little bit just to make sure everyone's up to date.
Francisco, you mentioned earlier, maybe I didn't hear you right, but clean method somehow prevents you from manipulating the front end in the admin. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, no, definitely. So it's because in the exercises that we've done some overriding of the clean method. And because of the overriding that we did of the clean method, it was causing an error when we were trying to validate our many-to-many relationship. So the many-to-many relationship isn't created until the object is saved, right? So it runs the full clean and then save on the admin side. But when we do it, after we overwritten our clean method, it goes save and then full clean. And it's that order that allows us to do it through the Python shell and prevents us to do it from the admin side. But because I didn't overwrite my clean method here on these classes, I'm not running into that issue. Does that answer your question?
Got
Okay.
Yes,
perfect.
thank you.
Did we add URLs file? No, we haven't done that yet.
Sorry, real quick, can I just see what you have under libraries on your admin?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Okay, everyone should be up to speed now. I am
Real quick, when you go to add a member, my books column is like I can't add any books. It's just super skinny, but it's there like I can add it, but when I type in, nothing populates.
yeah, that's a weird error. So you're saying that you go to add a member, right? So if I go to home, I go to members, and you're saying you want to add a member, right? And
Correct.
let's say we do Avila, sure, age is fine, doesn't really matter. But this is empty currently, right?
Correct. It's empty and it's like one character long skinny. It's not even a wide box. So if I were to type anything in it, you can't even see it.
There should be a plus sign on the right-hand side.
Yes, it's there.
Okay, if you click on that, it'll have you create a book.
No, when I click on it, nothing happens.
Nothing happens at all.
Correct.
Interesting. Is your server running?
Yes.
Okay, then there must be a problem at your models level or at the admin register level. If you go back, let me close this out. If you go to the home here, does it show books, libraries, and members?
See, where are you at right now?
The home site of the Django admin.
Yes. I got books, libraries, and members.
Click on books.
Okay.
And then click on add book.
Okay, and yeah, that looks normal.
Okay, so yeah, just add a couple of books real quick and then try to add
Okay.
a member afterwards. My members are automatically getting all the books I've created. Yeah, it's only the book that's highlighted, not all of them. So you have to select one. And if you want multiple, you hold down Command or Control and then select the others that you want to be added in there.
How come when we set the book library ID that members of Code Platoon can still see the books of Roosevelt Library? Is that supposed to be able to do that?
Yeah, so we don't have a method for that. We could definitely add a method now, right? To be able to do that. Currently in the admin side doesn't control that specific information. But we can definitely add a method to our. Sorry, I have all these noises going on here.
When I try to make a member, I get a type error when I try to save it. And it's this type error at admin member app member add. It says object of type int has no length.
Object of type int has no length, so I'm assuming it's going to the ISBN. As you're saying it's in the member site?
Yeah, that's what it says when I try to add a member. I put a couple books in and then try to add a member with a book attached to it, and just get this. The web page pops up with a 500 error on it.
Yeah, I'm getting that same error as well.
Okay. If you go over to your models, do your models look exactly like do your models look like this? I wonder what's going on. Because it sounds like
I guess the only thing that's different is I still had the min validator in there. I guess I can take that out. I had that in the first name and the last name. And then
do you have the min length validator or do you have the min value validator?
I had the max length one, and then I had the min length validator.
Yeah, those shouldn't be causing the issue. I wonder what's causing.
Got false, and then null equals true, which is not needed actually.
Right.
I gotta pull that out. And then I got min. Oh, I see what it is on mine. I have age, I have a min length validator, and then I also have a max value validator. So I got them confused. I got the wrong validator in there.
Okay, perfect.
Cool. Thank you.
Of course, no problem. All right. So just like I think it was Ethan was saying, we want to make sure that our members are only able to check out books from their specific, only their specific library, right? So let's go ahead and do that. Let's create a method called check out a book. And now this method could take in self, and then it could take in a book as an argument, right? And now what we can do is if book dot library ID is equal to self dot library ID, then we could rent out the book. We could say books dot self dot books dot add, and then it could just take in the book dot ID. So then this way it's going to check that it's corresponding to the SEM ID that I have. And if it does have the same ID that I have, that meaning that we both belong to the same library, then I'll be able to check out that book. Is that what you're looking for there, Ethan?
Yep, so we'll still be able to see all the books within the admin site, but now it should give us a error if we try to do it.
We're not going to get an error or anything. The admin site won't be able to handle that. This is internal logic that we'll have to apply ourselves.
Okay.
There'd be a way to have it where it's not even seen at all. That way you don't have to label everything. It'd be hard to, as it would grow, it'd be hard to identify what was in what library.
Yeah, are you referencing to the admin site?
Yeah, so when you go to the admin site and you want to make a user, and the user, when they're in the Roosevelt library, you only want them to see the books from the Roosevelt library.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a way to do that, not through the admin site, but we could definitely do it through our own API.
Okay.
All right.
Is this something you can create a custom validator for to restrict that so that the admin site throws an error?
So our validator is for handling data input. What the admin site does is display all of our data. We could add a validator that would throw an error. Yeah, we could essentially turn this into a validator and say, hey, the only things that will be affected in this relationship is if this book is sharing the same ID, right? But if we create a validator there, validators don't play well with many fields. So we would have to create a connecting table, and it would end up complicating our life. Whereas in the better action in this case would be to create a method that would handle kind of like a setter or a getter. So this would be more of a setter that would handle renting out a book depending on the specific logic that we want. And then when we build out our API, have it function in this specific way. Does that make sense, Ivan?
It does. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so now we were able to get quite a bit in there, and now we're going to get into making our actual URLs. So let's go over URLs real quick before we go on to our break. And then right after our break, we'll try to finish out by doing some postman and some pinging action. But so far, I hope everyone is caught up to where we are. Okay. I'm looking at the chat. I apologize. All right. So far, everybody should be caught up with where we are. So let's go ahead and start working with our admin site. I mean, with our actual URLs. So let's populate our project here. If I look at my project, there's going to be this urls.py file. So I'm going to head over in there. Okay, and I see this /admin. Where else do I see this? Currently, I'm inside of the admin site, right? And if I look at my URL here, I can see that I have my local host followed up by /admin. So this is good. I know that these are the paths that are going into my URL. So now let's say that I wanted to be able to display all of the books that I've created so far. So how can I do that? I want to create a route that will go over to my books app.
You make a path for. Sorry, go
You
ahead.
need to add something to the Django's URL import path though, right?
Yes, we
include.
need to have include. Yeah. Okay. So now I have this path. What is it that I want to name this path?
API.
Say again?
Books.
API slash something like that.
Yeah, APIs slash, it's our first version. So let's say books, because we're getting all of the books, right? And now let's go into include. Well, include is a function that's looking for a couple of arguments. It's looking for where exactly is this path connecting to. So this path is kind of working as a connector, and my include is telling it what to connect to. Well, I want this books to connect to my book app. So how could I specify that inside of my include method?
Is it book_app.urls?
Yeah, so book_app.urls. All right. And now it's giving me a problem. It's saying, hey, I can't find this module. And it's giving me a module not found, bookapp.urls. Well, let's take a look at bookapp. And it's right. Bookapp doesn't have a URLs file. So what should I do now?
Make one.
Make one.
All right. Let's make a urls.py. Okay, and then we should see that our error updates here shortly.
Francisco, not to interrupt the flow state right here, but since we created that data, should we do fixtures?
We can definitely. Let me finish the URL patterns and then we could backtrack and do some fixtures real quick.
Thank you.
Of course. Okay, so now it's able to identify that I have a URL file now, but now it's throwing all of these errors and it's saying, hey, you're telling me to look for URLs here, and I found the place, but it doesn't have any URL patterns. So it tells me this doesn't have any patterns in it. So how do I do that? Oh, well, it tells me if you see the URL patterns variable with valid patterns in the file, then the issue is probably caused by circular importing. Okay, but I don't see URL patterns in here. So what do I need to do now?
You need to create URL patterns.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's say URL patterns. Okay. So now it has URL patterns, but currently my URL patterns aren't doing anything. And we can see this is functioning as a list, but it's probably looking for something. Let me reference back to the project. Well, in the project, they have URL patterns, but they also have a path inside of that. So I probably want to replicate this behavior. So how can I do that here?
Like import the path?
Yeah, let's look at that. Let's say from Django. Oh. .urls import path. All right. So now we're here at URL patterns on line 4. And now we said that we want to specify a path. And for this one, we just want to return all books. So what do we want to call this path?
The empty quotes.
Yeah, empty quotes. Perfect. And now it's going to freak out because it's going to say, hey, you need a view here. Does anyone remember how to create views?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So let's work through that. Let's open up our views file. Okay, what do I want here? And actually, before we even start interacting with our models or anything like that, let's just make something simple, right? Let's say we want to create a view. And this view is just supposed to return, let's return a JSON response that will just say hello or something along those lines. So please walk me through that. What do I need to do now?
Or response.
What did you say, Don?
You have to import response.
Okay, so let's say from Django dot HTTP import, and then you said JSON response, right?
Yeah. Or can't you do response too?
Yeah, so response. Let's try that out. Let's see if we have response. Okay, so it seems like response is not something that's available to Django HTTP. And I think when you're referencing to response, you're talking about the response that comes from Django REST frameworks. Is that right?
Yeah, it might be. That's probably what I'm thinking.
Okay, so let's go over installing Django REST frameworks real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and Control C. So now I Control C out of my out of my server, and now I'm going to go ahead and pip install Django REST framework. I'll let everyone take a look at that real quick. I'm no longer going to need this SQL draw, so I'm going to close it. Okay, so I pip install Django REST framework. I'm going to go ahead and press enter. Okay, so it looks like Django REST framework was installed successfully. And now I could change this to say, well, from REST framework, and it's not able to recognize it, unfortunately. Dot response, import response. Okay, and it says that it doesn't exist, but I know it does, and I know that my virtual environment is tracking it correctly. And the reason why I know that is because if I go ahead and run my server works well. The only error that it throws me is that my path is missing a view. Okay, so we could do response. And let's just go ahead and just do a function for now. How can I create a function that handles a request and returns a response of hello?
You have to import API view here, or do you do that in URLs?
Yeah, we would import API view here, but we're gonna wait a little bit before getting into classes. First, I want to make sure that everyone's tracking how these URL patterns are working.
Wouldn't it be whatever we want to, I guess we could just call our function like hello world. And then you would pass in request.
Yeah, perfect. And then this request needs to return a response, right? So let's return response. And let's make this response, hello, Django. Okay, so now I have a view that I'm able to utilize. But currently my URLs is still freaking out because it doesn't have a view. So how do I connect that? How do I import the view that I just created into my URLs file?
From views, import it?
Yeah, so from .views, and I think there was a question.
No question.
Okay. And now I have hello Django, right? So now my path is saying, okay, well, I have a path, but I'm missing a positional argument, which is view. So what goes after this comment?
Should it
The
be
class
view
name
too?
as views?
Yeah, the view, right? We just want hello Django. And if we were utilizing a class, we would utilize the dot as view. But because we're currently just utilizing a function, we don't need to use the dot as view just yet. Okay. So now I have my function, everything's running. And I heard some people say, well, I don't understand Postman. So let's take a look at Postman real quick. Okay, so now
Francisco, just real quick, the name for that function in the URL patterns, is that also only for classes?
The name for the function.
No, inside of the URLs, the URL patterns, we had a name.
Oh, yeah.
Is that normally?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just asking if that was only for classes.
Yeah, no, that's definitely not only for classes. We could add a name and we could tell that we know that this one will eventually return all books. So I can just add a name saying all books. It doesn't matter what we call the name. That's just personally for us as programmers to be able to reference it within Django. Okay. So now we created this view. So now how do I send a GET request to this specific view?
You have to put in slash API version 1.
Yeah.
Especially your URL path.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's a good observation. And that's a perfect way of putting it, right? So we want to look at our URL paths. I know that I want all books. Well, this is the URL path that I specified. So I'm going to grab it straight from here. I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it. Okay, so this request is going to go to the local host, which is my entire project. And then Django's going to say, okay, well, I'm going to look for the following URL pattern. So it checks, is this admin? No, it's not admin. So it moves on to the next one. And it gets to API v1 books. Okay, so then it's able to match the URL pattern. And then Django says, okay, well, what am I supposed to do here? And then it sees that it's supposed to include the books app.urls. So now it goes to the URLs at the books app. It identifies that it has an empty path. And it triggers the function called hello Django. So now when I go over to this view, we see that this is returning a response of hello Django. So now let's see how that looks. I send my get request. Okay, I get a problem. So let's take a look at what's going on here.
Is your server running?
It is running. Let's see. API v1 books. Response.render. Interesting.
You know, is the API view that we had in the with the class, was that also passed in a function?
I'm sorry, Ivan. Could you say that question one more time?
Yeah, so the first thing that we imported from the REST framework was the API view for the class view. Is this something that's applied to the functions as well? API view?
No, so API view will only be applied to the actual to the class. The way we've done it, there is a decorator if you want to work through it functionally that you could utilize. But that's not something that we're going to cover just yet.
Does it have to do with the the GET request that we're getting? Was there something that we had to put in to pull that or to find that or ping it?
No, I don't think so. It seems like the problem is coming from REST framework not being recognized. So when I send this request, it tells me that the problem is coming from REST framework. See, it says assertion error. It didn't accept this renderer, not set on response. So it's saying, I don't know what it is that you want.
Do we need to add the hello Django to the URL in the box? No, in the
I was gonna say mine recognizes the REST framework and I get the same error.
Oh, does it really?
Yes.
That same thing.
Same thing for me.
Okay, then. So let me take a look at what's going on here. So hello Django takes in requests, return response, hello Django.
Francisco, can I see your book app URLs real quick?
Yes, of course.
Okay, yeah, I missed the name equals all books. Thank you.
So it takes in the path, it has a pattern, pings hello Django, then it goes to the name. Huh, interesting. Let me try something out real quick, just to make sure that that's not the problem. Yeah, so the problem is it's something going on with response from Django REST frameworks. Maybe I'm utilizing it incorrectly. I'll have to make sure. We'll see. But currently right now, we see that it's connected, right? We see the function hello Django, and it's supposed to return a JSON response with the key of greet and then the value of hello Django. Okay. So now, again, when I send this request, it goes to the project. The project then matches the URL pattern, looks at the include method, and says, okay, well, you want me to include this app, so let's check out that app URLs, and let's see what it is that you want me to do. It finds the empty path, and after it finds the empty path, it says, all right, well, what is this function doing? So now it looks at the function, it triggers the function, and then grabs the response, and that's what it returns to the client. So they send the GET request, and they get the response from my model view controller. All right, everyone should be caught up to me at this point. Are there any questions over anything that we've gone over?
Are the curly brackets there around greet? Oh wait, hold on, wait, why does mine look different? Never mind.
Okay. Okay, we've been going for quite a while, so let's come back at 11:05 and let's try to finish out at least one of our API endpoints before we start doing our retro. All right, I'll see everyone here in 7 minutes. Resume the recording. All right, welcome back, everyone. I hope everyone is back, and let's go ahead and continue on with the rest of our problem. It doesn't look like we're going to be able to finish the entire API, but we should at least be able to go through and maybe get all books. So let's do that next. So currently we have this this function built out, but we know that because we're programmers and we're moving on forward, and we don't want to keep moving, get stuck or go backwards. We know that we write everything now in classes. So let's bring back our books, and this is going to take in something inside of these parentheses. I think, Roger, you mentioned it earlier. What exactly would go inside of these parentheses?
API view.
Yeah, perfect. We want our API view. So let's grab that from REST framework. So let's say, so from REST framework dot views, import API view. Okay, so we have our API view. All right, so now out of this API view, I want to make sure that I grab all of my books. So how can I do that? How do I query the database to grab all of my books?
You create a variable for all objects.
All books
Let's say all
equals.
books.
You would have to import books.
Okay, so let's grab books. So from dot models, import books. Okay.
And then do book dot objects dot all, and that should get you everything in a query set.
Perfect. Okay, so now I have everything in a query set. Now, what do I want to do here to this query set?
You want to serialize it and then convert it into JSON.
Okay, so let's grab that. So from Django.core.serializers, import serialize, and let's say import JSON. All right, so let's print all books here first, and then we'll go ahead and do some variable reassignment. Okay, and we said we want to utilize JSON to load the serialized variable, and we want to serialize into JSON. And what we want to serialize is my all books. Okay, so maybe let's turn this into a query set. So query all books so that we know the difference between the two. And we'll call this formatted all books. And then we could print the formatted all books. Okay, so now I have all of that. And finally, I could return it in my response, which hopefully it will work correctly now that I have Django REST framework being recognized. And what I wanted to return in response, what do I want it to return? Do I want it to return my query all books or my formatted books?
Formatted.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good observation. Thank you so much for bringing that up, Noah. Yeah, so we want to make sure that only a method is triggering this. And I did this on purpose, right? We're able to fill out the body of what we wanted to do. But we have to attach a form of behavior. Well, this class needs to react in a specific way. And currently I know that I'm sending a GET request. So what method do I want to create inside of this class?
A get method.
Yeah, we want to create my GET method. Okay, and my GET method is going to handle both self and request, because we saw that we have to pass in a request to our view controllers. So let's go ahead and comment this out real quick. And now that we have our GET and request, we can just indent our body so that it knows this is the behavior specific to my GET request. All right.
Did you import something else for the response?
Currently my imports are
Oh,
just
okay.
single REST frameworks.
Thanks.
Of course. Okay, so now we fix that. But now the next thing that we need to do, let's actually try running the server so that we can see how this goes. Oh, sorry, I was doing
Hey
something.
Francisco, before you do that, can you show your the imports for the as the API view real fast?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and can I also get the rest of your line 18 after JSON?
Line 18, of course. Let me see if I can make this bigger. There you go.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Of course. All right, so now let's go ahead and run the server. Okay, and we're gonna see that we got a problem. All right, so this import says it cannot import hello Django from book app.views. And that's true. I commented out Django, hello Django. So I'm wondering where this error is coming from. Currently it's telling me it's being triggered at the views level, right? But we know that it's coming from line 2 in my urls.py. So how do I fix it?
We just need to update our URLs to include all books.view as.
Yeah, so now let's go ahead and replace this. And let's have it be all books. Okay, so now we imported all books. Now Django's freaking out again. It's saying, hey, you gave me a class and I need a function to be able to work correctly. What do you want me to do with this class? And just like Ethan said, we need to specify to Django that it needs to treat this class as a view. Okay, so now it's completed. Everything's compiling correctly. Let's see what exactly that did for us. Well, if I go ahead and send my GET request, now we can see that all of my books are being printed with the fields that I want them to have. Okay. At this point, are there any questions over what we've done so far?
Can you go to the views.py? My JSON, I'm getting underlined on formatted all books equals and then the JSON. So it's not recognizing JSON or query all books, but on the top I do have the import for the serialize.
Is this what you're talking about?
Yeah, right there. And then on line 18,
okay.
Where it says JSON.loads, JSON is I get the nice little yellow squiggly line, and then query all books is the same.
And you imported JSON?
Correct.
I may have to see your specific code because it sounds like there's a syntax error somewhere. Before I go into your code, Della, I think you had a question. I may be able to address it before I move on. What is your question?
I just pasted it. I'm just getting like type object, all books has no view as view, no attribute as view.
Right. So remember that as view is a function or a method. So you need to make sure that you have the open and closing parentheses following that.
Yeah, I have that in there.
Okay, so yours looks exactly like this?
Yeah.
Okay, so now what does your view look like? Okay, let's do a little bit of debugging here. Let me pause the recording. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I hope everyone had a good lunch. I'm just going to do a quick review over the current state of our project that we have. So currently, we went ahead and started a new Django project. We drew out our schema in order to be able to create our models and our different connections. And we have a total of 3 apps. We have our book app, our library app, and our member app. In our member app, that's the one that holds most of the connections. We have a many-to-many connection. We created a related field in books so that book can reference to all of the members, which we'll be able to see here shortly. We have a library ID, which points to a specific library, which we can actually see display here in 1. And then we have our library, which is essentially pretty empty. It doesn't really have any connections. But let's take a look at library model real quick, just to ensure that everyone's tracking on the same thing. So our library currently just has a name and an address, which is just a text field. I guess we could have made that an address field. But for simplicity's sake, we made it a text field, and we have our self.name as our string method. Okay. So now something important that I want to point out to everyone that was brought up a couple of times is if I look at my models in my books, well, my models doesn't actually have this members. It only has the related field. And it was part of the school API exercise yesterday, that when you ping all of the classes, it would return to you a list of students that are inside of that class. But the classes didn't have a way to access the students, or at least we didn't see that many-to-many relationship get printed out here. I've heard that question come up a couple of times, so I want to make sure that we clear that up. Okay, so in this case, let's say we're working with our queries, right? And currently right now, we're just doing a JSON format for all of those queries. Okay, we could definitely keep it in this specific order. But something that I want to do is I want to be able to see all of the members that are in the specific that have the specific book. So let's see what we can do here. I'm going to create a for loop. So I'm going to say for book in query all books. And I'm just going to go ahead and print the book. So I want to see what that looks like when I go ahead and send my GET request. Okay, so I send my GET request, and currently the dunder method for every book gets printed out. I see Python, JavaScript, the scary stories, and I see the jokes book. That's good. That's what I wanted. But now I also want to see the members that have these books. Can anybody walk me through how I could see the members that have these books on line 19?
You want to see it as a query or after it's been formatted?
Yeah, I just want to see it as a query by now. I want to make sure that I can access them, right? So if I look inside of my model in line 11, I can see that there's supposed to be a field named members. But that field is coming from a related field. And that's why I don't have direct access to it when I see it in my queries.
You could do book.members, right?
Yeah, let's check that out. Well, I wonder what happens if I do .members. Okay, well, that almost worked. I see the member app, and then it goes to member, but then it says .none. So how could I correct that?
.all.
Yeah, I'm basically just querying that independent model to grab those clients that currently have each book rented out. So we can see that for each book, which is a total of 4 books, we get 4 query sets, 4 list of members who have that specific item rented out. Okay. So now I'm going to do a little bit of adjusting here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the index and the book, and I'm going to pass it through the enumerate function. And just in case we forgot what the enumerate function is actually doing, let's go ahead and print. And actually, I'll comment this out. before I even deconstruct the tuple, I'm just gonna print book so that we could see this. I'm gonna send that GET request, and we can see a tuple with 0 and then the name of the book. What does 0 represent here?
Index.
ID.
Yeah, that's representing the index, all right? So it's going through and grabbing the index of each individual query. So it's grabbing the index here from all of my books. So now I'm just going to deconstruct it so that I can grab a specific variable for the index and the book. Okay.
Can you show me your dunder method again real quick?
My dunder method. Are you talking about?
Yeah, for printing the book.
Oh,
Mine's
yeah.
printing out a little different. Just want to make sure I got that right. Yep, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So currently right now, I have a way of accessing all of the members, right? And eventually we want to see this in JSON. So I can just pass it as a query set in here, right? So I can just replicate this behavior, but instead of passing query all books, I could pass in the book members.all. So let's see what that looks like. I'm just going to go ahead and take this perfect line here. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it here. But just like we said, we don't want query all books. What is it that we want to display here?
The members.
Okay, and to grab the members, how do I write that again?
Is it book.members.all?
Book.members.all. Okay. Nice. So now let's see what this looks like. Well, now when I send the request, we can see each individual model for the member app. So now each member is printed out, and I'm grabbing that information. Okay, well, that's fantastic and all. But currently, that's not what's showing up on my formatted data yet. I need to add this into a field. Okay, so what is formatted data? Formatted data is a list, right? So I need to access a specific index in that list. After that, I need to get inside of fields, and I need to add these members inside of this dictionary. So that's a pretty basic Python thing that we've covered a couple of times. At this point, we're just messing around with list and dictionary manipulation. So how could I get a specific index inside of this list?
Would that be formatted all books bracket fields?
Not fields yet, right? We're gonna get to fields eventually, but currently right now, formatted all books is a list, and I want to grab a specific index, which is a dictionary from this list. So what would I pass in these square brackets?
Do you need the index from the enumerate?
Yeah, I would pass
Oh,
the
yep.
index, right? And let's make sure we print this out real quick so we can see it. I'm gonna separate them a little bit. Let's say client.
Is there a reason why you're using query all books instead of formatted all books for your enumeration?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I could pick either or, right? But the main reason why I use query all books is because I want the actual class itself. I don't want the JSON class, which is just a dictionary without functionality. I want the class that's coming out from the query set so that I can grab the members by accessing book. Because if I try to do this through just a JSON, it's going to freak out and say, hey, you don't have anything called members inside of this JSON format. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Of course. Okay, so that's going to print out client, and then let's go ahead and print out the, oh, actually, let's make these members. And let's make this book. All right, so now let's go ahead and send this request. Okay, and we're gonna see a pretty big gap between them because of the of the new lines that I inserted in there. So let's see what this looks like. So here it returns to me a list of members. So we can see it's returning the entire list of all of the members that have this book. Here under book, we can see that it's returning me the specific book. Okay. And we can see that that book is changing at the same time that it's iterating to the next member, and so on. All right, so that's working well. But just like we mentioned before, I don't just want to see, I don't just want to see the members, right? I don't just want to see them. I want to be able to actually insert them into my formatted all books. So just like before, now that we're grabbing a specific dictionary, in that dictionary, we need to be able to grab, I apologize everyone, I'm getting some messages on Slack from, and I'm trying to handle those at the same time. All right, so we have a specific dictionary, and I want to make sure that I add those members into the fields dictionary. All right, so how do I enter fields from here?
Bracket fields.
Okay, bracket fields. Okay, now I'm essentially just adding a new key, which will be members. So how do I add a new key with a value to it?
Bracket members
Bracket members
equal to the JSON.load serialized book members all.
Okay, so I'm basically just going to grab this information from up here, and let me close this up so that we can read the entire Python function. Okay, so there you go. We're able to grab all books. We're formatting them in JSON, but once the book is formatted in JSON, it loses its functionality. It's no longer a class. It doesn't have any methods. It's just a dictionary. And then after that, we're iterating through each one of the query all books, meaning that I'm iterating through each class. And then after that, I'm going inside of my dictionaries representations, grabbing the index at which I'm currently at, going into fields, adding the key of members, and then making that equal to all of my book members. So now let's see what our response would look like. So I send this, and now we can see it's changed. We have our model of a book. We have the primary key. If I go inside of fields, I can still see the title, but now I have this members list. And now the members list has this specific member along with their list of other books that they themselves have checked out. But they only have IDs, and that's okay. We don't want to keep doing more and more nesting to get more and more information. Okay, at this point, over this part, I know a lot of people had questions about this part when it came to the school API. So please, what questions do we have?
Did you pull your VS Code back over?
Yeah.
So to talk through this, right, I have to kind of say it out loud to make sure this makes sense. You have a version of it formatted as a dictionary, and then you have its version of it still being in a query. That way you can use the method that the query has to assign it a new key into its dictionary format. Right.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. That's cool. I think that's what you did yesterday. I was just so burnt out that I couldn't realize what you were doing.
That's fair. Yeah, it was a very long lesson yesterday.
Can you go over again the reason for using enumerate and how it works?
Yes, of course. So enumerate is going to return to us a tuple that will have the index and the value of that current index when it comes to a list. The main reason why I'm using enumerate is because I need to utilize the index to access that formatted dictionary that I want, right? Because otherwise, I wouldn't be able to grab this specific index that I want so that I can add this members field into the dictionary of fields. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. And I have one final quick question. I don't want to branch off into this. Just a quick sidebar. Would it be possible to do it without enumerate? I don't want to like get into the meat of it, but I'm just curious if that is possible.
Yes, you could definitely do it without enumerate. You could use something like range. But instead of just accessing the books this way, you would have to call the index and then dot members, then dot all. So you would be calling index for both.
Okay, thank you.
There was another voice in the back. Can I hear that question real quick?
I don't know if it was me, but I was gonna ask actually if we could do that third nest where we do get the other books that the user has, just as I know it probably won't be useful, but I think wouldn't make much sense to do it, but I think it'd be useful because it'll show, if I'm right, we'll have to import inside the views, we'd actually have to import more information to get that next this information there.
Yeah,
I would be repeating, right? Because that's from the books model, so you wouldn't.
Oh, is that from the books model? So you just have to print out that you'd have to add another field onto it, or
Yeah,
what
I
exactly would you have to do to get that information?
Yeah, I'm hearing you guys' question. Let me make sure that no one else has any questions on this. And then if no one else has any questions on this, we could definitely go more nesting in there. But I just want to make sure no one's lost it to this point, especially if we're going further inside of the nest. All right. So up to this point, how's everyone feeling? So. Okay. I saw some so-sos. Any other questions before we go further in there? What's the key on Mac to wrap things in VS Code? Option Z. Perfect. Kristen just did the eye rub of I'm done here. I saw that. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Yeah, let's take a look at something a little bit more nested. So help for everyone. Okay. Showing API view is not defined for myself. Did you import API view up here?
I did not. I'll go ahead and get that. Thank you.
Of course. Okay. So let's go ahead and do a little bit more nesting. So currently right now, we're nesting this formatted JSON fields, members, and then after that, we're adding all of the members. Well, if I wanted to add not only all of the members, but then wanted to go into the members and get all of their books, well, let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. Okay, so let's say book.members.all. And currently right now, I'm just going to print this. Okay, well, when I see that, I see the individual query sets, right? It's just a list. So I could also loop through that. So let's say for member in book.members.all, and let's print out member. Okay, so now I'm able to print out all of the members. We have Ivan, Roger, Francisco, and Adam. And that's coming from this specific thing. Well, just like before, I can say .books.all. Now let's look at what that looks like. Okay, so I'm basically just doing it in reverse, right? I'm able to iterate through, grab all of the members, and that's what I'm doing here. So I start iterating through each individual book. Then I start iterating through all of the members right here. So now I'm iterating through all of the members, and I'm printing all of the books that belong to each member. Okay, so now that I have that information, well, how could I assign that inside of fields? Well, I would basically do the same thing that I have up here. So I would say for IDX, member in enumerate book.members.all. And then to go in here, well, now I would have to say, I'm gonna copy all of this so that we can still move on from there. And instead of calling this IDX, I probably want to call it JDX. Just to have it different. Okay, so now it's gonna grab the formatted index of all books, go into index, then it's gonna go into fields, and it's going to go into members. And then after that, I want it to go into JDX. I want it to go into books. And then I want to assign that to JSON.loads. I'm gonna open up this bracket so that I can see it. And then I'm basically just gonna put this serializer in there. Let's see. And instead of book.members.all, well, I want member.books.all. Gonna take off this print statement because I'll no longer need it. And if I send that request, well, now we'll see we'll have the member that's been replaced by a list. And when I get down to book, ooh, it didn't fix it. Hello.
I think we need to name member something else. Maybe not, but it's giving me an error because of that.
I'm trying to see where exactly the error is coming from. Let me go ahead and do a little bit of printing here. So formatted books, IDX. We want fields. Members. And then JDX. Okay, so now if I send this request, we can see that it's coming back correctly. It's grabbing the correct information. Okay, and then after that, I'm saying, oh, I missed the key of fields. Okay, now that should do the trick. Okay, again, so we have fields, it goes into members, iterates over members, and then once we see it get into books, that's when the book is now replaced for the dictionary again. And now we hit this infinite loop that we could continuously ping one and another and just keep going into the nesting.
I appreciate that. Thank you. That helps a lot.
That helped out a lot.
Got it. All right. Any other questions?
Can you share the VX code again?
Yes, of course. And let me try to wrap this up a little bit. There you go. Can you display all the members that have the books in the list of books for the list of members? Sorry, could you walk me through that one, Kelvin?
I'm sorry, it was just a little joke.
Oh, it was a joke. Okay. I'm glad. All right. Okay, so it doesn't seem like there are any other questions. Does everyone understand how the get all method works? After this, we're just basically writing regular Python data. So for example, I know there was a question that in the API school assignment where it was asking you to get the average grade per class. And if no students had a specific assignment, then return 0. All right. Now, none of that is inside of our database. So you have to just write an actual regular Python method that would take into consideration the sum of all of the grades that are listed inside of that query set and then divided by the length to get the average. And if there are none, then it would return 0. Now we're just going into the basics again of just messing around with data to making it fit the way we want it to and returns the things that we need.
Or would you make that method in here in the class?
Yeah, you would do it in here inside of the class. So And you can make methods inside of the class if you would like. So this is staying the same across the entire thing, right? So let's say I make something like DEF format a book. And then that takes in self. Not only does it take in self, it's going to take in IDX and then the book instance. And then I don't need to rewrite anything too crazy. I could just grab all this information here. I think I just grab all this information. I'm trying to think through it real quick. I apologize, everyone. Yeah, so if I grab all this information and try to make it fit here, and this might be easier if I just make this a books. No, I do want it to do a book.
Fuck.
I may have to do a little bit of extra thinking to figure out exactly where I would want to break up this function. I don't want to do that in front of the entire class because I didn't plan this ahead, and it might take me a while to figure it out and then pass it to everyone. And if you guys just watch me debug and try to make this fit correctly, it might just confuse everybody.
Like, you're good. I
gonna-
just didn't know you could do extra functions that weren't part of like the get, post, and all that stuff.
Yeah, so this is still a class, so you can make whatever methods that you need to be able to format information, and then just utilize those methods throughout the class by self dot whatever the method is.
So when you run, like, instead of running a get, you would run like you would go into Postman and you would type in the new method basically that you're creating there before you hit send. Is that how you would use that? Like, so if you just make like a basic one that just has a return, I guess, for something, yeah, say hello, yeah.
Okay, and then it's just gonna take in self, and then return, what were you saying? That it would actually return something? So I could have this return a response or do some specific type of functionality. So,
Yeah, just anything, I guess. That way we can see it like when you actually, instead of like on Postman here, you have you're running a get method. I'm just wondering if that get method, I'm assuming, is linked up to that. So the drop down over here will have a spot where you can type in a new method. I'm wondering if that's how it's linked up, if that's how those dots are connected.
Got it. Yeah, so we wouldn't necessarily utilize it in that way. Instead, we would just utilize the method within the get. So it would look something like this, right? And then I would still send it. The only difference is that now if I look at my, sorry, I have this print statement still here. The only difference is that now it says, I'm gonna say hello, because that's what my method is doing. If I wanted my method to return a response, I could do it this way. And then instead of returning this, I would return like so. Oh,
Okay, I guess I was just curious if you were able to change this from a get to a custom method, and if this get specifically is linking to this get here.
it is. So this
Okay.
get, which is the method of request that I'm sending, is automatically linking to the specific method that I created of DEF get. I can't create an optional one and ping say hello because that's not a registered method under HTTP. So it would just be get, put, and delete methods that get triggered by requests.
Okay.
What about where it says type a new method down there at the bottom of that drop down?
I'm clicking on it right now and it doesn't seem to be working.
Yeah, it might have been like outside the scope and everything. I was curious. I just wanted to make sure that it was linking up properly with the get and the put and everything.
Yeah, it is. So if I go ahead and make it put or something like that, and I send that request, it's just gonna return method not allowed. Because I never made a put request. But now if I say, okay, well, I want you to. This is actually a good example. So if I say put, then it takes in the request. And then it returns self dot say hello. No, let me erase this one. Well, now that I have the put methods actually stated and I go to send it, it just returns say hello.
Awesome. Cool.
Yes, that is when we go into CRUD. Okay, perfect. We've hit our time, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.